Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of High Scores, High Stakes, the podcast that tells developers how to make a good game, but can't even make a good podcast. I'm your host, as
Hey.
always, Mr. Lava Lava. And with me, as always, are my co hosts.
You know it, it's me, Cardinal Smith. Good to see you, lover. And I
Yes.
am high on fruit pastels, responding to cues on podcasts, ready to go.
This is a monumentous day in High Scores, High Stakes lore. Cardinal Smith is on time with his cues.
Yep.
What are we going to do?
Episode 64.
Brilliant.
He took that cue and ran with it almost like a professional would. But
Ronnie
also,
O'Sullivan over here.
but of course, in the aftermath of that unprecedented moment, Tomahawk forgot to say his name.
He did. Tomahawk did forget to say his name. But we live and learn.
You know, many podcasts would edit this all out and start again, but not us. We're not doing that
What's
at
the
all. No.
It's off season. What do we don't need to worry about formalities, we'll say.
Or professionalism, or anything like that. None of it. There's been none to this point, so why start now? Why start?
Sometimes it's just too hot to edit.
And speaking
True.
of not editing, Cardinal,
What?
tell me what games you've been playing but not
Wondering
recording.
what you were going to say. Here's something that absolutely needs cut. What have I been playing lately? I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. And because I think we're all on a race to get our brooms before Sherry did. And I just want to say I've absolutely got my broom.
Oh,
I played about
amazing.
2 hours, maybe.
2 hours,
I think maybe.
God, that's no time.
and you got a broom.
Oh, maybe it's been 3. I haven't. You know what? I'll check. I will check for you during this podcast and tell you my playtime because I've just got the broom.
Incredible scenes. But go ahead.
But I've also played and completed the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. It's like intermission. It's a mission,
It's one mission.
but it's intermission between the remake and the new game that's going to be released later in the year.
Okay.
Just a bit of a side
Excellent.
character killed Yuffie. There you go. Done. Tick.
Beautiful.
What about you, Tomahawk?
Yeah, Tomahawk.
Well, since we last convened, I have since finished Alan Wake. The game is every bit as good as I remember. More. Just can't wait. Can't wait for part 2 now. In the meantime, I picked up God of War on PlayStation Plus. I've just been powering through the main story for that. Kind of because I want to just get into Ragnarok as quick as possible in the meantime. But game holds up. Game is running as every bit as you expect from a Santa Monica game, to be honest.
Yep.
Absolutely smashing it.
Love it. Love it. See the Alan
And
Wake remake,
sorry.
just before you continue on there. Alan Wake remake. Does it have a DLC? All the DLCs? The 2 of them, I think.
I haven't checked.
Yeah, there was 2 or 3
I must go
DLCs.
back and check.
One of them was definitely called The Rider, and it was great. If you haven't played that, play that.
Are they like proper DLCs? Are they
Yeah.
like canon? That sort of way? Okay. They're not just like.
Yeah, to my knowledge,
we're
the
figuring
Rider,
cash cow them.
the
Okay.
Rider definitely is canon. Definitely is canon because the Rider would tie into Control.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and check that because as soon as it was, I was like, tick,
See.
delete, let's go. Yeah, see you later.
Alan was sent to
It's
sleep.
yeah. Once you remember the story and once you're done, like it's kind of served no purpose for at least for the next 2 years, I suppose.
Well, 2 months, mate, because the sequel's out in October.
I know that's it. I'm gonna have to refresh, do a quick refresh.
And you can now reinstall Control, play through it, and then play the Alan Wake expansion.
That's it.
So
The
you
whole
can-
extended universe.
Yes, boy. First of its
Alan
kind.
Wake.
Mhm.
But yes, I interrupted you there. What else were you going to say, mate? I think you're going to go into a third
I did also. I went straight into the PlayStation Plus trial of Hogwarts Legacy.
game.
I'm hooked.
It's good.
At 45 minutes, I wouldn't so much call it a trial. More, let's not kid ourselves here, like. But I think I spent too much time on the character creation and not enough time on the actual playing of the game. But that being said, Doris Flemberger is here to stay. I'm gonna...
Flameburger. Right, you mentioned this in a chat, and I actually googled the name, thinking this was some character I missed, but it was just what you'd called yourself.
No, I went for the most J.K. Rowling style character.
I love it.
Bizarro
Oh.
made up
Just
second name
two
you can think
random
of.
words slapped together
Exactly.
that sound
I-
kind of name
I
it.
knew it was set in the 1800s, so I thought, what's an 1800s name? I looked it up, came up with the name Eli, and then they did a surname, so I just went with Toblerone because he's Swiss.
She's Swiss. I love it. You know what? The 1800s bit never even registered. Like, what's a Harry Potter name? Because it was a toss up between something Harry Potter and sophisticated and a D's nuts joke. So I went for the lesser of two evils on that one.
I honestly cannot remember what I called my character in Hogwarts Legacy, but I also tried to think of the most J.K. Rowling name I possibly could. I came up with something utterly ridiculous. I can't honestly remember what it is, but there we go. There we go. So that leads me on perfectly. I have
probably
also
good.
been playing Hogwarts Legacy, and it is excellent. It
Check this
really,
out.
really is good. It reminds me of like it's like a bully. It's like it's like what made Bully so good makes Hogwarts Legacy good as well. I like the way you have to go to lessons, but I also like the way it's just like a wee montage. It's just like oh zap, whoa, Expelliarmus, oh, hey, and you don't have to do anything, and then you just go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're an absolute god walking into Hogwarts. You're like, Spelleramos picked it up first time. Boom, boom, boom. Avada Kedavra picked it up. No bother. No bother.
All the
Reached.
teachers are clearly trying to groom you. Oh, you're so good with your wand. Look at you.
Hang on, you're just talking about old, what's her
Garlic.
face?
Professor
Garlic.
Pretty woman.
She, she takes care of her
She can
buds.
help me in my garden anytime she wants.
Lads, this is a PG podcast.
It is.
Remember?
That's very true. Also, I am 5 hours in and I don't have my brim yet. So I don't know how you got a brim so quick. I'm 5 hours in. I've done the first dungeon, I suppose.
Less grooming, more brooming.
Mm.
Topical.
I've
Anyway.
literally- I think I finished off with the room of requirement without spoiling it for Tom. That's where I am in the game. 5 hours in, and I haven't been. Well, I haven't felt like I've been dragging my heels and doing all sorts of side quests or nothing. I've been trying to fly through the story because I got a lot of games in the backlog. But Hogwarts is good, really good.
Try
so it
again.
is. I also have been playing and completing and absolutely loving Ori and the Blind Forest on the Steam Deck. It is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. It's just a Metroidvania platformer game. But brilliant. Brilliant. The first 10 minutes were not the first 10 minutes I thought I was going to get in that game. And the last half an hour is not the last half an hour I thought I was going to get from that game. Really, really, really good. Gets brutally difficult near the end, but a good game. A very good game.
What's the main
Story.
premise then? It's not
So
yeah.
okay, so the main story is this forest is being all the elements are in perfect like balance and life is great. And then one day there's a tree in the middle of the forest and it has all these like orbs of light. One of the orbs of light falls to earth and it contains like a little like a fairy or a sprite or whatever it might be. It looks like a little cat, a little white cat. That's your player character. And you get like adopted by this creature in the forest. And then all because of you coming out effectively, all the balance is gone and the world starts tearing itself apart.
Okay.
So it's your mission then to reclaim all the elements. So there's fire, water, and wind, and you have to bring them back to where they need to go to reclaim balance. But the main antagonist in the story is an owl, but it's great. It's a great game. Brilliant, start to finish, brilliant. Tough. I think I died like 500 times in it. but really, really good, really good. It was not the game I thought was going to be playing, but it was all the better for it, and I can't wait to play the sequel, which is apparently an absolute masterpiece.
Oh,
So
amazing.
it is. But yeah,
You'd love to see it. What a recommendation.
a really good game. Honestly,
Something that's not Street Fighter. This is absolutely fantastic. As
I haven't played Street
Is this
Fighter
by
this week.
Capsule Computers?
No, it's
we're
from
growing
Moon
as a
Studios.
podcast.
Oh my goodness, the partnership's going to get cancelled.
I know, mate. They still haven't received my
That's
check
it.
from last month, so you know what? If they're not going to pay me, I'm not going to pretend to like the games anymore. That's just it. I'll tell you what I really think of Mega Man.
Show,
you
me,
wait, Exo
show
Primal.
love of the Dino Crisis, or else. Damn the Exo Primal.
Or else Exo Primal's getting a 35 out of 100. That's what I'm going to do. Exo Primal's good. But without any more delay, shall we get to our challenge for the week, I suppose it is, despite the fact it's not really a gameplay related challenge. So let's go straight there. Okay, so the challenge this week that we all had to face, adapt, and overcome is we had to think of the ingredients that make a great boss fight. Like, we were discussing this before we started recording because we actually know each other outside of podcasts. I think we've all tackled it slightly different ways, which is good. So what we're going to do is, these are in no particular order. These aren't like from third to first. What makes a great boss fight game? We've all tackled it in a way of, you need these three things for a boss fight to be considered a good or great boss fight. Yeah, it's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what we've done. So what makes the recipe to a great boss fight? Great boss fight. And I think, just to mix it up a wee bit, I don't want to go first this week.
Oh, here
So
he
I'm
goes, here
gonna
he goes.
throw. See, this is the joy of being the host. I can do what I want when I want, and not even tell you lads.
He's a megalomaniac, but
I
we love
am.
him.
That's it.
Totally egotistical. Sacked the dude running the Twitter.
Egotistical?
Oh,
Jeepers, yo. That's exactly how I'd describe you.
that's right. I sacked the Twitter account guy.
It's
Cardinal
biological.
might be next. But as I was saying, the recipe for a great boss fight, I was going to go to Tomahawk first, but we're going to go to Cardinal. Cardinal, what's the first ingredient you need for a great boss fight, mate?
Egotesticles.
They could be the weak
bloody-
point. Flashing
well,
yellow.
And that is exactly the kind of topic I'm aiming for. So
Ooh.
I've got 3 elements I think make up a great boss fight. And originally I was thinking of the mise en scène, the setting and stuff like this. But what gives me the best memories and the biggest impact that I recall from my boss fight, the first one, which I've got 3 categories here, is strategic depth. Hello.
Ooh.
Tell me more.
Shakar.
I will.
I didn't think you liked strategy in your games.
Me? Strategy?
You've
You
never
know
mentioned
what?
that.
Never heard of it.
I've
You've never
never
once mentioned it.
My top played games in terms of ours never include strategy games, apart from all the top ones. So what does that say? Anyway, let me tell you a bit more, right? And I'll give you an example.
Okay, I
So-
would love an example.
Great. I'll
Examples
give you
make
one.
this podcast work.
And then
I'm
I'll give you an
thinking.
example.
Yeah.
So, strategic depth. So I think it's a crucial factor. It distinguishes an outstanding boss fight from a regular boss fight to me, because the players are the players are compelled to think critically and employ tactics.
Mhm.
Now, if I think of the Final Fantasy series, it's known for lots of epic boss encounters, and dragons and beasts and machines and stuff, and this exemplifies this aspect. So whether it's analyzing elemental weaknesses or exploiting a specific attack pattern, or even down to utilizing your party composition going into that boss fight, it just offers that strategic depth that keeps us, the players, engaged and rewards our ability to adapt and strategize.
love it. I love it. I once you said strategy, I knew you were going to go Final Fantasy boss because it's the first thing I thought of as well. Was I think it's a fine line. I think the thing that separates, especially in RPGs are all about the strategy, and it's all about, as you said, composition, and it's all about your gear, and do you have the right gear for the right boss at the
Yeah.
right time. I think the thing that separates like the truly
Yeah.
great RPGs like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX. That's right, I said it.
You
I
wind
said
up.
is the fact that the bosses actually allow you to beat them in more than one way, whereas the lesser RPGs just become gear checks. So like as good as Wild Arms is, there's a couple of bosses in Wild Arms just become gear checks. Do you have the right element imbued item to beat this boss, or do you have the right elemental power, whatever it might be? Do you know what I mean? Whereas Final Fantasy tends to steer clear of it. Some don't.
It can, and I think there's an entire podcast there to discuss that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I do just want to touch on that strategic depth though, because just kind of see where you're going with it. I had kind of touched on just as I was playing God of War. I've been getting through like the Valkyrie bosses. It kind of does the same thing. It borders on gear check, kind of what Love was saying there. But it makes you absolutely change every manner in which you approach a villain or a bad guy or anything in the standard sense. As soon as you come to the first Valkyrie, you're like, right, hack and slash is not going to work here. I actually have to be tactically aware of what's going on now. So yeah, that's a great point actually.
What I like about the Valkyrie fights, I don't like them at all. But
It's an interesting point that you do like.
But one thing I did like about them was each Valkyrie was different. It wasn't just the same boss 16 times. Every Valkyrie had like different attack patterns, and there were different enemies, and they were I like that. But yeah, I hated them. They were so hard. And they were
they were tough. Like
especially the first one. The first one's a proper. Do you have the right axe? Do you have the right level? Are you strong enough to take us on? And there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, to my recollection, there's no level requirement. It doesn't say, "Oh, are you sure you want to fight this?" Isn't it hard?
I think the NPCs. I think you get like Atreus or Mimir. They'll go, "Are we sure we can do this?" They do it as like a subtle kind of, have you, like, without actually saying, "Have you got the gear?" They're asking you, are you ready to take this battle on?" And 9 times out of 10, no, you're not.
But you're like, I took down the pantheon of the gods. Of course, you can do this as an angel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Be sweet. Don't you worry about it. Don't you worry about it, Mimir. Hello, Mimir. What a character. Great character. But anyway, Tom, what's your first element for a great boss fight, mate?
My first element for a good boss fight. So, I like a boss that is always constantly making you aware that it's there in the background, watching you.
Like a
Alien
micromanaging
Isolation.
boss at work.
Okay, exactly. So, put it this way. So I will still stand by the Alien Isolation. The Xenomorph is the boss, and it's the boss throughout the game.
Yes.
Can we
Yes.
agree on that? Yep. It's always there. You're always afraid that it's going to be there, even in the missions where it's not.
Or it's not.
I think that is, especially when it's not, even the outside missions where you're like, it can't get me, but it might.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes a great boss, is the fear that it might just bring out at you at any given moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when it instills fear without actually having to do anything.
Yeah.
Makes a great element to a boss fight as well.
Yeah, and that is a beautiful, beautiful segue into one of my elements of a boss fight. So I think we're talking about the same thing here, but we're worded it slightly differently. The first element I think it makes a great boss fight is threat. So I came at this slightly differently. So I think like a really good boss fight has an element of a threat. And I'm not talking about difficulty. I'm talking about something about that boss should frighten the player in a sense. So that could be something as simple as when you enter the arena, there is a cutscene that shows the boss entering the arena, and the boss can be
Yeah.
enormous, or it could be really late in the game, or it could be something along those lines. But there should be some element of threat from a boss. I think the best ones in gaming have that. So some of the examples I have of this to sort of illustrate what I mean is, do you remember the game Fury that was on PS Plus maybe 6 years ago? It was like this 2D
Long before my time. Then.
isometric boss
Tom,
rush
you're
game.
so young.
There was like 10 levels to it, but the levels were just boss fights. Do you remember this? No.
No.
I didn't play it, but I remember.
Did you talk about this on a previous episode where you're like an angry?
No, that was
Or am I thinking of
Azura's
something
Wrath.
else? No.
No. Fury
Right,
is
okay.
the story of Fury is you're in this prison and you're trying to break out. You don't know why you're in prison, but you're breaking out. But you have to go through the 10 levels of the prison. You have to beat the boss. But there's no level. It's just all boss fights. But the second to last boss is called I think it was the Beat or something like that. But the whole game is brutally difficult. Really, really, really difficult game. You get to this boss, and it's just this woman, and she refuses to engage with you. She will take pot shots at you, but she refuses to engage. She just tries to convince you that what you're doing is wrong, and it's just like this. It's the
I love
game
it.
has, up until that point, the game has, what's the word? It's sort of acclimatized you. This is going to be hard. This is going to be really, really, really difficult. You're going to die loads, and you're going to have to learn patterns, and you're going to have to learn it the hard way. And then all of a sudden, this boss is easy. Like there's very little
Yeah.
challenge. There's no challenge to it at all. It's just one of those bosses that are trying to appeal to you. So whilst the game has been building you up, this is going to be every boss beforehand has been harder and harder and harder. And then you are nervous going in. So every level has like an opening cinematic to the boss where it's just the boss and stuff. And you just know you're watching this is going to be hard, and it's not, which I like. Which I like. And then you have like the obvious ones, like the Gaping Dragon in Dark Souls. So that's the boss from
Okay.
the depths, where it's just this enormous dragon that comes out from the sewer, but it has a mouth. But when it opens its mouth, its whole neck is a mouth, and it has all these teeth.
Okay.
And you're watching that cinematic going, "Ugh, this is gonna be really hard." But again, it's not. It's not hard. But the threat is there, and it makes you scared, and it makes you fumble the ball. In some instances, like Fury, I did fail a couple of times. The Gaping Dragon killed me a couple of times as well. And then you realize actually this is pretty easy. And then the other example I have of this is not Alien from Alien Isolation, but it's Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. He just lets you know he's there
Yeah.
all the time, and he is a scary, scary man, and he's on beat.
Oh yeah.
But yes, threat is my big one. It's one of my
That's a good shout.
ingredients to a good boss fight. Threat, whether or not the threat's real. I'm not saying bosses need to be difficult, but they should have some element of threat, and they should make a player scared, one way or another.
I love that because I mentioned Final Fantasies before. My favorite one is Final Fantasy VII, and it uses that all the time.
Mhm.
So there is a point of the game in the first disc where you meet this thing called a Midgar Zolom, and it's this massive serpent creature that's floating around a sort of swampy area called the Midgar. Yeah, the Midgar Zolom, right? And Sephiroth has killed it, right? And he's like, the power, how did he do this? And you can attack it yourself. But if you go back later in the game, you're completely OP and you kill it in like a couple of hits.
Yeah,
But it's just like, but in the terms of the game, you like have to capture a chocobo, aka a vehicle, to escape, to get past it. You know, just to avoid going anywhere near this thing.
yeah.
It's the same effect.
That's a really good example as well, because Final Fantasy VII does that really, really well. The flashbacks to Sephiroth doing these things, you know he's going to be a boss at some stage of the game, but it makes you fear him, just because you can
Yeah.
see how powerful that man is, and he's brilliant.
That's why
Brilliant.
it's the best.
They also do that in Kingdom Hearts 1 as well. They build up Sephiroth. Sephiroth is one of the bosses, and they gaunch about how powerful he is, and he is a brutally hard boss fight in Kingdom Hearts.
Shout out to the word gaunch.
Ew. But speaking of gaunches, Cardinal, what's your number 2 ingredient for a good boss fight?
Oh, well, you know what? Not far away from what we were talking about, but I'll use a different example. Is emotional engagement. That's my number 2.
Oh,
From the
okay.
heart.
So you have to fall in love with the bosses, is that what you mean?
You gotta kiss them, smooch. Anyway. So, but I just mean boss fights that evoke a strong emotional response and create some of the best moments. So, an emotional engagement can be achieved through various means. It could be through a narrative, or a part of your own character's development, or their character development, or a sense of the personal investment you put into achieve defeating that boss. That could be time, grinding, whatever. So I'm going to use the example of the Metal Gear series. Ooh, yes, culture. Has anyone ever heard of it? No. It's known for its complex storytelling. Thanks, Hideo.
One word for it.
Yeah. And it crafts boss battles that challenge players physically and emotionally sometimes. These encounters delve into thought-provoking themes and raise moral dilemmas. There's too many examples to choose from, pretty much all of them. And they sort of blur the lines sometimes between what's right and wrong in the context of where Snake is or Big Boss. So by incorporating this kind of emotional engagement, boss fights become more than mere gameplay challenges. They become powerful story-playing tools. And I think that enhances the narrative.
Yep.
The experience.
Love it.
I think there's plenty of examples. I think one of the last ones in Metal Gear 4 is you're fighting. Snake is fighting Otacon on top of Shadow Moses, and it's just a bare knuckle fist fight.
Yeah.
And these two old men are just beating each other off. And it just you have to at one point. I think they even inject nanomachines into them to keep the fight going and stuff. But that's the culmination of multiple games leading up to just another fight between these guys too. But there's a lot of context.
See, one of the ones I think as well, it sort of talks about what you're talking about, is the boss fight with the End in Metal Gear 3. Where you don't have to engage with the game at all. I like that. And it just sort of shows you, because the whole game goes to great lengths to show you how old he is. And he looks like he's no threat. If memory serves me, can you kill him at the start of the game on a second replay?
You can prompt him when he gets off the helicopter.
They take him out of the helicopter, and then they wheel him in.
It's a split moment. You can snipe at him as he's being wheeled in his wheelchair.
Yeah, I like that. But they go to the great lengths throughout the whole game to show you how old he is, and you're thinking this guy's surely not a boss. Surely he's like the ringleader, and he's gonna he'll be like at the end he'll just fly off in a helicopter, and then the next thing you're thrown into this forest, and you don't have to engage with him. You can, and he's a proper hard, really good boss fight.
Oh, he's a tough boss, yeah. The other method was switch your PlayStation clock a week forward, and he dies of old age.
Yes, he just dies of old age. And spot his bird, and his bird just flies in a circle over. Love it. I love it.
Could you imagine Could you imagine starting that boss and then going away on holiday for back?
Yeah,
ready to tackle the end.
And
he's died.
I love that. Absolutely love
People complain. I knew people that bought Metal Gear 3 and sold it because they didn't like how many cutscenes it had. That fight alone can easily take an hour. Because he is it's a big open forest, and he's silent.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I think whenever since we're talking about emotional engagement, only ever brings me back to when Lava was streaming The Evil Dead. Oh, not Evil Dead, sorry, The Evil Within. And the emotional engagement I think we all experienced was him trying to complete the final horde or the final boss. The big whoop and cheer as soon as you did it.
That game broke me in many different places. So it did. the level where you fight Lisa, I think you call her, the screaming woman. You have to kill her with fire. That broke me. And then there was the one where you beat the strange creature in the underground car park. Also broke me. And then the final bit, just running through that maze. Oh, GBNF, what a game! That was an emotional roller coaster. One, I started happy playing it, and the pits of despair. I suppose that's the point of
Oh, it
horror
was
games, isn't it?
beautiful.
And the swearing at the invisible enemies in like level 8. But anyway,
Aye, that was good.
Anyway,
laugh.
enough
good
about
times.
normal enemies.
Since we're on the horror genre, I think we're going to have a common theme on this one anyway.
Mhm.
In terms of another element that I think is really good with a boss fight is when it takes the player, the protagonist, the avatar, however you want to call it, it takes them out of their usual routine. Like in this Resident Evil 8,
Mhm.
takes them out of the usual, I'm going to shoot them, I'm going to knives or Molotovs at them, and then I'm going to put them into an armored tractor, and you're going to
Oh,
fight
okay.
Heisenberg. I like it when they take it so far away from the norm, and that's when you know you're in for a big boss fight, and you're in for a good boss fight as well.
Okay.
And I think particularly Heisenberg is favorite bosses in Resident Evil 8.
Really?
For that, I think it's not a particularly long boss fight,
No.
but because it's so different from the entire game and what you do, because you can fight Lady Dimitrescu, but you still fight it in the same format with guns, automatic weapons and grenades and whatnot, whereas this Chris Redfield just goes, right, get in this tank, you're gonna go out there and do some stuff.
Yep.
It's so far away from Resident Evil as well. I think that makes it more standout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who doesn't like just firing rockets and machine guns at a I don't even know how you want to describe him. He's just
no idea, just a mechanical wizard, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's
basically
a literal mechanical wizard. So Cardinal Hasnabaldi, who Heisenberg is.
not a clue.
Is he the guy from Breaking Bad?
Yes, he's also a character in Resident Evil 8. He's basically there's four lords. Four
lords, yeah.
He's the fourth.
Is he
He's
the
the last
one that
one.
says?
Yeah,
He's
the
the
last
one
one.
that
Fourth
says,
Lord, but-
"What are you buying?" Right?
And he is basically his mutant ability is effectively he is Magneto, and he can control all forms of metal. So his boss fight involves him flying around with massive amounts of metal just spinning around him. You can't hurt him until you get to this tank, and the tank is made of some material that, of course, isn't
that can't be magnetized. Yeah,
non-magnetic. Which is
Excellent.
in
just
the
handy,
wishy-washy Resident Evil, like, oh yeah, it's special metal that can't be touched. Yeah,
why Chris Redfield felt the need to bring that to this random village in the Appalachian Mountains, who knows? But he did. Thank goodness he did, because you would have been snickered without it.
would have been stuck without it. Ethan would have had another thing to complain about.
Yep. I would have lost another hand.
But in terms of other examples, I had it's very hard to, obviously, because we do such extensive research going into these podcast records.
Yes.
Resident Evil 8 was the main example that I had in terms of just taking what you know in the standard game and then just going so far left field for just taking you so far left field particularly for the boss fights as well, and especially
to be fair,
quite a high octane boss fight.
To be fair, when you said Resident Evil 8, I was thinking of a different moment in the game, which it is technically a boss fight, but there is no fight. So it is.
Is it the fight with your emotions when you see the lady?
Early game hardships, let's just say. But no, it is the Don Viento house where you go in. She's the doll.
Yeah.
And then you go down to the basement and you get stripped of all your ammo and guns and stuff. And it becomes like a Saw movie, effectively. So it's this big puzzle room and you have to get out. But when you solve all the puzzles, the lights go out, the red like warning lights come on, and then it's this massive
A big slug
fetus,
baby thing.
like a fetus, starts chasing you
Yeah.
around, and it's the most. It's the part of the game that stopped me from playing it again. To be honest with you, it is unsettling. You can't fight this
It's
thing.
quite,
You
yeah.
just need to run, and then you at the very end of it, you have to hit a lift. But of course, the lift has to come down, and the baby is just right around the corner every single time. But yeah, I thought that's where you're going with that. Not technically a boss fight, but I would count it as a boss fight. Plus, the actual Don Viento boss after that is hide and seek.
Was pretty good actually
So
as
the
well.
actual,
Yeah, that was actually.
so by
It
subverting
subverts
your
from a typical boss
expectations,
fight. Yeah, yeah.
Resident Evil 8 does it almost every single boss, apart from Lily Dimitrescu and the weird frog guy, whose name escapes me at the minute.
Yeah, the giant frog lord. That's it.
Like, that has its moments. The start of that boss fight's good, where he's a big aquatic creature, but then it degenerates into run around this arena lobbing grenades, and it's not very good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it is, but yeah, good game. Really
It's
good
one of the
game.
very few downfalls of Resident Evil 8 to be that boss fight in particular, but
The final boss
I
fight's
think it's a
poor
lot
too.
lot of saving grates on it as well. But I can't remember the final boss fight now. I'll come
The
back to it.
Eve against the mother.
No, it wasn't. That was it. That was my
big
gripe. This is the thing that bosses shouldn't do, is just go between forms and go, just figure
Deal
it out,
with
lads.
Deal with this one. So this whole section here started with Cardinal talking about emotional attachment. So that if memory serves me correctly, I have went something similar with this one. Now I think a great boss fight needs great boss music.
Yes. I really hope someone will bring this up.
So I think you can use music in three ways. One is subvert your expectations of what boss music is.
Via the
second
ear.
one-
Sorry.
The second one is pump the adrenaline into the player with like a high octane music beat. And then the third one is have zero music and just have the game sound effects.
Yes.
So I can't remember the name of the boss. There is one boss in Dead Space where you fight it in silence because you're in the vacuum of space. There's no sound at all, and it is weird, and it was unsettling. The second one I can think of is Metal Gear Rising, and it is the boss fight, the final boss, Commissioner Armstrong, Senator Armstrong. Sorry,
Senator Armstrong.
and like that game is just, if you've never played it, treat yourself to Metal Gear Rising. It's not the best game you'll ever play, but it is the most mental game I have ever played from start to finish. It makes no sense, but it is such good fun. And the final boss fight against Senator Armstrong has this pulsating, driving, heavy metal song playing as you fight him, and it is just insane. It's just the most insane. Like, you are already, this is the end of the game. It takes place on a moving train that's rattling through a city, into a forest, into a mountain, and it's flying. The train's flying, and you're fighting this hulk of a man who is just seemingly unbeatable. And you're half cyborg, and he's throwing you around like he ain't no thing. And the music is just like boom, boom, just like it's.
The music was great.
It is unreal.
It's the one game soundtrack that I consistently still listen to. I have it like saved on Spotify, and occasionally I'd be like, this. Right, this is what we're getting. This is getting pumped up music now. Yeah. And it suits any. It's fitting of a boss fight is exactly what it is.
Yeah. And in the last way, so by subverting your expectations on what a boss is through the music, I've got two examples. The first one is Ori and the Blind Forest. So as I said at the start of this, I'm not going to spoil it because you deserve to play it and just experience it. But the main antagonist in that game is an owl, and near the end of the game, there's a chase sequence where you just have to move from cover to cover to evade this big owl. But after you complete that, it shows you this cinematic, and the music that plays isn't what you expect it to be. It's really somber, really slow, really sympathetic, not to you, but to the owl. And it's just an incredible moment. And then Dark Souls does that as well with Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder. So Gwyn is the final boss in the game. He is the man who rekindled the flame at the end of the last age, and it's his job to keep that flame going. And when you get to him, you play 90 to 100 hours in the game, and you enter his arena, and he's just like his whole world is just like ash. There's just ash falling like snow. There's ash on the ground like snow, and you enter his arena, and because it's a final fight, he's the last Lord of Cinder. You've beaten everyone else. His his role in this world is now gone. The fire is going out, and you're there to either put it out or rekindle it. He knows that, you know that, so his role is now over in this game, and you expect this big, massive swell of an orchestra because that's what Dark Souls does for every boss fight. Gwyn's music is the most melancholy final boss music I have ever heard. He's a threat, but the music that plays is just some of the most beautiful orchestrated
it's the
music.
implication. It's the implication of what it follows, I suppose. Is
It's the inevitable. It's just outlining the inevitable. He knows you're there to kill him. You know you're there to kill him, and you both know he has to die. And the music just brings together. And in a game, it doesn't give you any story really. The storytelling told through the music to the Gwyn boss fight is just incredible, and it's probably some of the best storytelling in game that I've ever seen. Really, I've been talking about a lot this week about video games being art. It's moments like that that make video games art.
I think just backing up that as well, we were touching base there on Snake Eater earlier. I think the same thing, the final boss with the boss.
Yeah.
It's not if I remember correctly, it's not this massive driven orchestral. It's quite a somber. The boss. What's Cardinal doing? Stop making noises with your mouth.
I just looked it up on YouTube just to back it up because I was about to break to the exact same thing, and there's no music whatsoever except the flowing wind and the bustling leaves and petals around you. There's no music.
It's further emphasized with the absence of music, which I think makes that even better. But you're just it's the noises, CQC, it's the environment, it's. I think that there is something very soft underneath. I think.
Nope.
Yeah, I think in that it's the absence of music that makes it absolutely great. An even better boss fight anyway. It's totally characters than the music.
Yeah, not an awful lot of people appreciate what negative space can do, and like having no music can be just as powerful as having the most beautiful piece of music. And there's a lot we said about negative space. And just it's brilliant. I love it when games when games just do something to challenge the player to think a little bit different is great.
And it's entirely part of the narrative. In any of the examples we can think of or are given.
Yep.
One. I also looked up Final Fantasy VII. There is after your final fight with Sephiroth, there's actually another semi-fight. It's not really a proper fight, but it's just Sephiroth in human form and Cloud, the main protagonist, versus the antagonist, one-on-one. But it's playing a very soft, slow tune, which is the first tune you hear whenever you're witnessing the acts of Sephiroth back at the very beginning of the game. It's just all narrative via the music. It's just incredible. Music plays such a huge part in games.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. There's a lot more to be said for video game music than just licensing terrible pop tracks. Isn't there?
You could almost have a discussion about it over a podcast.
I'm telling you, I think we might have to. Because talking all this talking music is just making me think Streets of Rage. Cardinal, what is your third and final ingredient for a great boss fight?
It might be simple, but unique mechanics, innovation.
Okay.
So an excellent boss fight stands out by having unique mechanics, I find, or innovative gameplay elements. So if I look at classic platform games,
Yeah.
the pioneers, so that were at the time pushing the boundaries of creativity, to use a sort of hyperbole, but games like Super Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, they introduced these iconic encounters that you had to combine your platforming skills with the sort of mechanics of what was going on. I tend to love thinking back to the final boss fights of Sonic 2, where you go up into space and you're fighting this mecha Sonic initially, and it's got like real particular patterns of movement and speed that really get you, but it's so cool. But these sort of fights, so you sometimes have to exploit the environment or use power-ups effectively, adapt to the changing attack patterns like I just mentioned, but by introducing sort of fresh gameplay elements that are separate from the normal game up to that point. It's variety, excitement, enhances the game experience. French kiss. Sorry, not French kiss. Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
French kiss and chef's kiss.
What first one?
French
Then the
chef
other.
kiss.
Find a chef, French kiss him. Life advice.
Don't actually do that.
Breakfast will be good.
If nothing else.
If your meal's good, French kiss the chef.
That's it.
Yeah.
Ask for the chef. Get him out there.
Beautiful.
French kiss. Yeah. I'll have what she's having.
But so that is just to conclude. So unique mechanics just add to what I think was already there with the strategy and the emotional engagement.
See, I am glad that you said unique mechanics, because when we started chatting about this, the first thing came in my head was, again, Kojima. We're going to have to get him to sponsor this podcast, lads.
Oh, yes.
Him or Capcom, one of the two.
Just because of all his games have these unique fights that have unique things that isn't explicitly communicated to the player. So Psycho Mantis in the first one, he's not unbeatable if you don't change your controller port, but changing your controller port is the tactic.
It's the way to go.
Yeah. And I love that.
The mechanic.
The game doesn't tell you unless you spam the codec. The controller port, Snake. Love it. Yeah, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a very good one. It's very closely tied to what I have as my third ingredient as well. But before we get to me, Tom, tell us.
Cool. So, I think you'll all agree with me on this one. I think a good boss always inspire false hope. So,
Okay.
only for the fact that a couple of weeks ago I was playing Bloodborne,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a very love-hate from somewhere. Very much something about Bloodborne though I love, but I can't stop playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, zip forward. I've got myself I'm only just kind of getting to the cleric beast.
Okay.
Just in my infancy of my playthrough, anyway. Excellent boss fight on many fronts, particularly the aspiration of. So it does this thing where, like, a couple of cycles, it'll just decimate you, but there'll be one cycle in maybe 10 or 20 where you'll be like 2 or 3 hits from defeating it, and then he'll just hit you with this mega move that then just kills you, and then the cycle resets 10, 15, where he does enough to make you want to come back from thinking, oh, I'm just gonna repeat what I did last time, and then he just decimates you again.
Once more.
So
here's a pro tip
exactly
for the cleric beast. This will get you past the cleric beast. Okay. Stay
Listening, kids.
on his left arm, the small one.
Yes, I did hear about this. It's like
Stay
this
on it.
There's a big furry arm, yeah.
Just stay on it. He can hit you, but stay on it. And all he'll do is he'll jump back, go run up to his left arm, hit him again. One thing he might try to do is spin, but if he spins, just roll through it, and you're good to go. The Cleric Beast is a good boss. It's not the most difficult boss in the game. It's optional. You don't need to beat him.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed about Bloodborne anyway. It's you don't have to do it if you don't want to.
He's optional. He's not the boss of that area at all. The real boss of that area is an example I have for my final ingredient, So it is. Now, my final ingredient is mechanical precision. So I am a
Okay.
great believer that boss fights, regardless of where they fall in a game, boss fights should be a skill check to make sure that you understand how to use the skills and mechanics that the game has up until that point. Bloodborne's a really, really good example of it. Bloodborne's a very simple game. You have four basic attacks. You have heavy, light, dodge, shoot. And the real boss to the first section is Father Gascoigne. And
Yeah.
he tests that you understand how this game works. And he will test you. He's an absolute roadblock. It took me a very long time to beat him. But I'm a great believer. He teaches you how to play the game. So he does. If you
Okay.
don't employ everything that you've learned up until that point, and I do mean everything, you will have to parry him, you will have to shoot him, you will have to heavy and light attack him. Knowing when to do all that is crucial to beat Gascoigne. He is hard, but he's really fair, and I think that's really important in boss fights. So it needs to be a test of your skill, but it has to be fair. Gascoigne's brilliant. He's probably the best
Okay.
example I can think of for a game teaching you mechanics via a boss. But yeah, that's my third one. It should require mechanical precision from the player. I'm not saying perfection, but a high level of understanding of what the game wants you to do. It's really important in Bloodborne that you engage with every tool the game gives you, because you will not complete it if you don't. And Gascoigne is that point where the game says, you will learn this or you will die. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Another one is another Metal Gear Rising one that I can think of. And it was
Loves the Metal Gear
Mistral
Rising.
or Maestral, however you pronounce it. But that boss just basically teaches you, if you don't parry, you will die. But he's really hard. And he borderline is unfair. But you can beat him. You can beat him. He's borderline unfair. Not as good as Gascoigne. I think Gascoigne's perfect. The perfect boss.
French chef kiss.
I kiss everyone, not just the chefs, kitchen porters, waiters, waitresses, restaurant manager, everyone. But yes, so as a way of recapping, because that's been quite long, Karna, what were your 3 ingredients for a great boss fight?
Let me hit you. Strategic depth, emotional engagement, and unique mechanics.
Beautiful. What about you, Tom?
So my elements of a boss fight is a constant reminder of its boss's presence, subverting the norm of the game, and inspiring false hope.
Love it. Love it. And my 3
Love it.
ingredients are music, threat, and mechanical precision. So I think with those,
Perfect.
with a good mixture of those 9 ingredients, you have yourself a heck of a boss fight. Right? Let's just make him
think so.
better than Bowser fights in Super Mario Bros. We just run under him.
Grab his tail.
Super Mario Bros. Just run under him and hit a button. And then he
Imagine
falls
if
in the
that's how
lava.
you beat the cleric beast, is just grab his tail and throw the cleric beast bridge. That would have just been, imagine that.
What I
That's
love
subverting the norm.
what I love most about Cleric Beast is when you beat him, you expect at the back end of his arena there's like a portcullis gate.
It's okay.
And you expect it once you beat him that would open, but it doesn't. But to the
That's just a
left,
dead. It'll essentially be a
it's a
dead
dead
end.
end.
Yeah.
But to the left of the portcullis, there's a door. And I remember I bought that game day one, and there was this big theory online that door will open at some point, but it never does. It never opens.
Inspiring false hope.
Yes. I think it's removed content. You can find the other side of that door later on in the game, but it never
Okay.
opens. It never opens. Oh, what a game Bloodborne is. It's a masterpiece.
And who makes
absolutely from Software.
From
From who?
Dude, from Japan, mate. From the mind of
Just so
Hideo
we're still looking at
Miyazaki.
sponsors. So Capcom, Kojima, from
Capcom, Kojima
All
from I don't know. They all know our email anyway.
That's it. Microsoft are
Probably.
throwing money around. We'll try to get some Xbox games in next week. Technically, Ori is an Xbox Studios game, so
there you go.
Mr. Gates, if you're listening.
Hope's not lost.
We- so before
Speaking of sponsorship deals,
This
shall
war
we...
were bought out by Xbox.
let's get to the final section where we can really pitch hard for that Microsoft buyout money. And that is that, guys. Another episode all wrapped up. Which leaves us with just one job to do. The job that I'm not getting better at, which is how do you get yourself involved with the conversations of high scores, high stakes? Loads and loads and loads of different ways, and that's what makes it so difficult for me to remember all this. So I have
I
written
know
it down.
I know there's new ways, but
Now,
yes.
there's new ways. Now,
Don't tell him that; it'll only confuse him.
I know, and I actually forgot about one. Now, what I was going to say was this should be really smooth if I've written all of them down, but I know right now that I haven't. So, without any further ado, if you want to have meaningful conversations, the best place to do that is at Discord.
I think so.
And the link for our server is in the description of this podcast. Just give it a wee click, pick the server for the episode you want to talk about or the topic you want to talk about, and have at it. If you want to partake in any of the challenges we did in season 1, there is a room for every episode in season 1. Throw your scores in there. There is a leaderboard going on, and why not try to top that leaderboard? If you want to see what the next episode is going to be about through poorly thought out, poorly implemented clues, hints, tips, and games, then you can get all that and more on Instagram, where we are at High Scores, High Stakes Podcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can also do that. It is at H Scores, H Stakes. We are also, all of us are on Twitter. So I am at Mr_Lova_Lova. Cardinal Smith is at Cardinal_Smith_. Tomahawk is at Tomahawk_HSHS. Mr. John Sherry, if he ever returns,
Hashtag find
is
Sherry.
at Mr.
Just bring him
John
home.
Sherry. Please, Sherry, if you're listening to this, please. We miss
Coming
you.
out of the cold.
I don't know if you appeared in other podcasts, but if you are, it's okay. We forgive you.
Just let us know you're safe.
He is this close to
Oh,
appearing on the
beautiful.
side of a milk carton. So yes, where is he?
Hmm.
Hashtag find Sherry. And then, well, finally, I suppose we have the newest, latest, and greatest social media available, Threads, and we are there too. And we're actually really active there as well. As I said at the start, I've had to sack the social media manager. Terrible job he was doing there. So on Threads, we are at High Scores, High Stakes Podcast. Nice and simple. Give us a wee follow there.
Nice.
And you can see all the banter, all the crack. And right now, we are doing On This Day on PlayStation. And it's a summer games, right? So the games are really poor quality. So come on there, have a giggle at the games. I think today was, what was today?
Some American football game.
NCAA Football 2012. If you know anything about that, hit us up on
Give
Threads.
us a message.
I mean, ugh. It can't last
About
forever.
An avid fanship. Yeah.
The summer games right can't last forever. That's all I'm going to say. But I think that is it. I haven't forgotten anything, have I? I don't think I have.
Full video format. We can get
Ah.
it on YouTube. Well, yes.
Yes. On YouTube,
And that's
we
YouTube.
are at /at High Scores, High Stakes. Find us there. Glorious 1080p. Beautiful. Beautiful things to see. And all that leads us to do now is to say, until next time, I've been Mr. Lova. This has been High Scores, High Stakes. Love you all. Bye.
Good
Au revoir.
evening.